this painting, I chose some very common acrylic colors. That way you should easily be able to find these in the place where you live, or hopefully you already have these colors. I'm using a limited palette plus black and white because I find it really gives some very pleasing color combinations and beautiful neutral colors as I mix them. So the colors today are yellow, cadmium yellow medium, yellow ochre, burnt sienna, Prussian blue, and ivory black, as well as titanium white. The watercolor paper is 140 pounds or 300 GSM, and I attached it to a wooden board with this masking tape, just to keep it from warping too much, because I tend to use quite a bit of water when I paint this type of landscape. Taking a bit of water, just wetting my paper a bit. I want kind of a random wetness on the paper. And for this particular landscape, my plan is to use predominantly cool colors with some warm accent colors. So I'll start just using a bit of warm colors here. I'm going to take some of this pure cadmium yellow. Maybe just warm it up a tad bit with a bit of this yellow ochre. I'm going to add a little bit more water. This is watercolor paper, so I'm going to kind of use the acrylic paint almost as I would if I was painting watercolors. So very thin. And try and be brave here and make some marks. You can kind of absorb some of the paints if you think it's too much. But I want to create sort of a base layer here, and that will eventually become part of the background of the painting. A little bit more yellow here. I think I'm gonna add a little bit yellow here and there as well. Now I'm gonna let this dry. I would like a little bit more of a warm background color here. Let me just mist my paints with this water bottle here, this spray bottle. That way my colors will stay moist a bit longer. And I'll add a bit more water to really get this flowing again. I want to create some warm colors here, sort of random. Obviously I already know this area up here is going to be the sky, so I do know a bit about how I want my landscape to be, but I also want to stay open to some potential happy accidents, you could say. So let's see this. And now I'm going to be even more brave, and I'm going to add some very dark color here. I took some of the black, and maybe I will just warm it up a little bit with a bit of burnt sienna and a little bit of blue here as well. Let me see. I'm going for a very nice and dark color. I'm just going for some variety of marks and some contrast. So I think I'll start by making some dark down here. Okay, this can actually handle quite a bit more paint. Let me mix a bigger portion. And a little bit of water just to get it flowing a bit better. So, and I'm going for big brush strokes. And I'm also trying to think a little bit about the balance of the painting here. I don't want it to be too symmetrical, so maybe I should enlarge this shape over here a bit more so that these two shapes don't look like too much. Let me do like that. You can also manipulate the paint. You can actually use a paper towel. This paper towel is moist. I can kind of make shapes into the paint if I want to. I can make patterns. Look, by removing the paint, it's also a way that we can make interesting texture. And it's actually possible to also use this paper towel to instead of a brush. Look at this. And it picks up a bit of the texture of the paper. So the painting looks kind of messy at this point, but that's okay. Don't lose hope. I'm just gonna try and add some marks at this point. Scratching into the wet paint. I love doing this. I'm doing it rather quickly so that I don't get bogged down with adding too much detail. And if I feel I got a bit carried away, I can just go in and cover some of the marks up again, partially or completely. So I'm just gonna make a very watered down version of this and put a little bit up here. Okay, there we go. Now it's time to get a little bit creative with some pencil marks here. If you would like to see some more examples of how I use pencils like this in my marks, I have a few other tutorials and one of them is actually full length here on the channel, so I'll leave a link below the video for those as well. You want to find a balance with this. You want marks, but you don't want too many marks either, or it can kind of take over the feeling of the painting. But the more you practice, the more you'll get a hang of this, and you'll find the balance that's right for you as well, because this is individual also. I could probably use a pencil that's a little bit darker than this. You might not actually be able to see my marks. So let me just get a darker pencil. Okay, I have one here that's a little bit softer and probably make some darker marks for you. So I should be able to see that. Again, it's personal preference, what you prefer, but this darker pencil definitely shows up a lot better on the video, I think. Okay. So I mentioned in the beginning of this video that I wanted to make it predominantly cool colors with a warm accent colors. So now I have more or less all my warm colors down. So when I proceed now, I want to start adding some layers of cooler color tones. I think it's best to let this dry up completely before I continue. And I want to get some fresh, clean painting water. To prevent my paints from drying out, I'm just going to mist them with my water spray here and cover them up with this plastic tub here. So the layers are dry, and my masking tape here, it's sort of starting to lift off, so I'm just gonna press it down again. One of the important tips I want to give you is definitely make sure to let the layers dry completely before adding the next layer. I know it can be difficult. I'm not always the most patient person either, but try and see the difference it makes if you let the layers dry. Okay, we're ready for adding some of the cooler color tones now. So I'm thinking some grayish blue and different blue cool color tone. So let's start mixing some color here, and it stayed nice and moist under this plastic tub here. Prussian blue, it's quite a powerful and strong color. It's almost pure blue, not completely, but as we can see, it's very powerful, and I think it's going to be way too blue for my painting. So I want to take the intensity of this blue down a bit. I can do this in different ways. I can add black, of course. I can add whites, but I could also add a complementary color. And I think I'm going to take a little bit of this rusty red burnt sienna here and just add it. See how quickly it changes the color. I'm just going to add a little bit more blue here. Look how the intensity came down from this very bright blue here to this much more calm color. It's a bit too dark, so I'm going to add some white to it and get this very nice kind of grayish, light gray blue color. Perhaps I should make a slighter bigger batch of this color. Okay, there we go. Add a little bit more water to it. This might be a bit too dark. Let me just test it over here and see how. It's definitely looks very blue. I'm just gonna take it down one more notch here. Hopefully you can see the more I add this color, the more kind of the tone down and it gets. Yeah, I like this color. Okay, again, I'm going to continue with the thin layers. So I'm adding quite a bit of water here. I still want to control it. It's not dripping with water, but it's very wet. And I'm using this big brush because I want to stay loose and I want to stay expressive. And you want to try and stay as bold as you can at this point, because now we're going to start painting over some of the parts we already did. The more expressive you can be and the more quick you can do your strokes, the better it usually becomes. I know the tendency is to we want to control everything and do it bit by bit and very slowly, but if we want to show this expressive feeling, we have to do it in an expressive way. So let's try and do it quickly. I think this might be a bit too dark. Let me just lighten it up a bit. Just going to take a bit of white here and see, and a little bit more water. Controlling water, I know it's also a matter of practice. So you really have to practice and to get a feel for it. I can explain and you can see what I'm doing, but you really have to get it in your hands yourself to get a feeling for how much water to add. Okay, I'm gonna start up here and cover some of this these warm colors up. It's a little bit dark. Let me just try and control it a little bit with some paper towel. You see, I don't mind if you can kind of see the colors underneath. Let me get it even. So I'm going to try and make something that looks like sky and some clouds. I think it might be a bit turbulent weather, I should say. Okay, there we go. Again, use the paper towel to wipe off and remove things, to soften edges and maybe I should keep that edge. That was rather cool. bit more of a dark blue color going here. Not too much. Maybe add a little bit of this dark color up here. And I probably need to let this dry a bit before I continue. I need to take my own advice. I was just telling you how important it is to let the layers dry. So I'm gonna take my own advice and let this dry. I want you to see these more subtle layers before we continue. Hopefully you can see it. And a bit of the detail there. Now that these cooler colors have dried, I can kind of see that I might want to just enhance some of these warmer colors in the sky. Plus I want to put in some brighter colors among all these neutral colors to just kick the drama up a little bit. I would like a little bit more warmth in the sky up here. Let's just see if I can do this. And it's okay if I go on top of the blue, no problem. Let's get a little bit over here as well. And perhaps here. Again, if I feel it's getting a bit too much, I can just take my paper towel and dab the colors a little bit. I could probably use a little bit of warmth down here on the horizon. So I'm gonna do that and wipe it off partially. Like that. It's good to paint, but it's also good to take breaks to look at what you're doing and think about what you're doing. It's definitely looking and thinking about painting is just as important as actually painting. So just something to keep in mind. Got a couple of these big crayons. If you don't have these, you can use some other types of watercolor pencils or pastels. These are water soluble, but you could use oil pastels as well if that is all you have. These are really great to just add small bits of very intense color onto my painting, and that's what I want. So let me add a little bit of some intense blue down here, just a little bit. Maybe they are blue flowers, or I'm not exactly sure what they are. I'll just add a little bit up here as well. I don't want to overdo it. It's easy to get carried away because this is really fun, but try and do a little bit and then step back and look and assess and then go back in. I do want to use a little bit of this very intense orange as well. The paper isn't completely dry. I should probably wait, but let's see what happens if I just add some stripes with that. Maybe that was a bit too much. I can go in with a clean brush with water on it. Let me just take this brush here, and if I felt I got a bit too much on there, I can more or less wipe it off and remove a bit of it. Could have a little bit more of this orange here. I'll just tone this down a little bit. And oops, don't want this turning green. Okay, so Try and think less is more. A lot of times we tend to want to put everything into one painting, but usually it's much better to focus on a few things and stick to that. Maybe you also tried this yourself, where you wish you had stopped sooner. You can always take a break, go back in. It's a lot more difficult to remove things. So when in doubt, take a break and assess. I'm thinking maybe I should have a little bit more of a darker horizon line here to kind of make a little bit more of a stronger middle ground. Make a few pencil lines out here. Just indicate some faraway hills or something like that. Yeah, that looks okay. Sometimes it can be a little bit distracting with this masking tape around the edges. So I'll take off the tape and reassess once more. And I think I'll just recap the lessons we learned today. Try and keep a limited number of colors when you start out, and also try and decide beforehand if you want your colors to be predominantly warm or cool with your end result. Here I started with the warm underpainting and then added layers of cooler colors on top. The second thing I want to stress the importance of is to let the layers dry completely before adding the next ones. It's definitely something that can trip up a lot of students, so try your very best to let the layers dry before you continue adding the next one. Decide that you don't need to put in everything in one painting. Less is more. Please feel free to leave a comment down below if you have any tips to share regarding your own journey on painting looser. If you have any tips for me and the rest of us watching on this channel. Thank you for joining me today. It's been a real pleasure, and I hope to see you in the next video.